I think it's so apt, Carrie, that you defined it at the beginning because I do think that people align it with just the death of someone, close to you. And it's so much bigger than that. And to help them see how much bigger it is.
6Ks in a mic, we're done being quiet, breaking all the rules, starting up a riot, raw and real, no scripts to read. This is the honesty that women need.
Back to 6Ks and I'm like, thanks for joining us again. Just to remind you, if this is your first time watching us or listening to us, we are 6 sisters spanning 4 different generations. Is it 4 or 3? 4?
Three.
4. 3. 3 different generations. Couldn't remember. And we get together and just sort of, pick a topic and talk. And so we're happy to have you listen to us. We've been doing this, about 6 months now, I think. So still getting our feet wet. We've had some challenges with technology and time, but other than that, we're having fun. So I'm emceeing today, and I am number 5 of 6 sisters. And today we're talking about the topic of grief. And I thought that it was, I wanted to talk, this was actually my suggestion. So we sort of pick a topic and see what we think, and then we roll with it and decide to do it. And I had seen Anderson Cooper, who is doing a podcast, which I guess is not new. I thought it was new, but it just showed up in my algorithm. But he's been interviewing people and just talking about grief. And some of his interviews are a little heavy, and I don't necessarily know that that's where we plan to go. But I just thought it was an interesting topic. I think there's a lot of different places you could go with it. So I just thought it might be interesting for us to talk about. So I'm going to MC. But what I'm going to do, if you all are good with it, is I'll ask a question and maybe throw it out to you. And if you don't feel like, listen, the one thing with grief is it's very personal, right? So if it's something that you just don't feel like talking about or you're not feeling it in the moment, just say pass. And that's good. No questions asked. So
Wait, should I have brought the tissue box?
no, not at all. No, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
This podcast can get interesting sometimes, but I don't.
It
I
does
don't
go in
think
different
so.
directions.
My intention is not to make people cry. I just think it's an interesting topic. But I do need, Cal, can you be like a timekeeper that if we get off on some crazy tangent, you can just kind of rope us back
Rein you
in?
back in?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Because I don't know if I'll do well with that.
Okay.
So first I thought I would define grief. What is that, right? Because obviously there's a lot of, grief can, like I said, I feel like it's sort of like a plant that can take on many different stems and stuff like that. So, but when I Googled it, it was just natural, emotional, physical response to any loss. So just for all of us to level set, that's what grief is. And so it was interesting. I was thinking, did you all watch the documentary that took place, the crash documentary? I think most of us have seen it, right?
I did not.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting if you happen to, I don't know, feel like watching it. Interesting, disturbing, sad, all those things. But it was just really interesting because it was a reminder for me of how grief how different it is for people and how it can take different forms and come on at different times. I'll come back to that because I don't want to get into that right this second. So I guess the first thing I was going to throw out to the group is think back, what do you feel like was your first experience with grief of any kind? And let me know if any type, and I can go first if you need a minute to think about it. I'll share just so you're all not put on the spot. But I was trying to think about this and I'm like, crap, what's my first memory of any type of loss and I think first grandma came to mind, but then before her, I thought about Daisy, our dog, that we had growing. Daisy was our dog growing up. And Katie was not born yet when we had Daisy. I was still a baby. And I just remember that one day we were gone for the weekend and we came home and the dog was gone. And so I don't really, I want to say that she hit by a car? Is that what happened to her?
She had some kind of liver
Oh,
disease.
okay. So
And she wasn't
maybe,
just gone when we got home.
well,
So
I
did
feel
they
like
put
she
her down?
was.
What happened?
Yeah, we took her to Wolfiler's office, and he said she was too far gone, so Mom just had her put down.
So maybe that was like, I'd have to ask Mom, although she's probably not going to remember.
It was
She won't
somebody's
remember.
college graduation we were at, but I don't know
Okay.
who.
So we were gone. Were we gone?
Yes. And Mrs. Polk, I think, was coming down taking care of her.
Okay. All right.
And
That
then
makes more sense.
she had called Mom and said, she's acting weird. She's laying under the table. She won't come out. So then Mom called Mrs. Shahale because she's like, if she doesn't come out from under that table for her, something's wrong with her. And she didn't come out for the table for Mrs. Shahale. And even Mrs. Shahale was like, yeah, you need to take her in and get her looked at. And then she had some kind of weird liver thing, I think it was. But he said that all her organs were shutting down and, But she wasn't
Okay. So
gone when we got
basically,
home.
really? So that's what I remember. Like,
Yeah,
I
because
just
I
remember.
remember sitting in the living room with Mom, and she was under the table and would not come out for like anybody. I think Mom actually had to like drag her out from under the table to get her to the vet.
Okay. Okay. So interesting, because I was probably like 7 or 8 years old at that time.
Can't remember whose graduation. I don't know if it was.
I was
Kim's or
in
Chris's.
school. I
It might.
was in school, so it might have been mine, but
Yeah, maybe
I
yours.
thought it was. I think you were taking me to school that summer, maybe,
Maybe.
because I remember Kelly was in my room sobbing over Daisy. And I was definitely in France. So it wasn't
Well,
even
maybe all
like my
three of you were
senior
at
year.
school.
Yeah, say, because I don't remember any of this.
Maybe all
You
three of
weren't
you
at school yet. Kelly wasn't at school yet. She was still at home.
I think I was
I'm
probably
pretty
like
sure
no
we were
more
at
than 8 years
Heidelberg,
old.
and it's when we got home.
Yeah, I think you're
Well,
right, Kath. I think
Katie
you're right.
wasn't here yet. Katie wasn't born yet. So
It might have been Sib's weekend, and you guys were picking
But
her
Mom
up.
and Dad were. I felt like we were spent the night.
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe.
Well, clearly it's fuzzy, right? But
Yeah.
like,
Mom
so
might
for
remember.
me,
I mean, do you remember
that
any
was
of it,
just
Kel?
like my first.
Really don't. So,
So she blocked that
yeah.
whole thing out.
I say, this
I
is part
guess
of
I
grief.
did.
Is amnesia.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. If Kelly wasn't at school yet, she would have been home with us.
Right. And I mean, I remember when Daisy got into the bees and she got stung on her face and that whole ordeal, but I don't remember this part. So yeah, blocked it out.
Well, it's just interesting, isn't
I
it?
just
Because here I'm
remember
like, oh,
she
she
was-
got hit by a car, and yeah.
She spent the night
it's
at my
interesting.
room. I remember she was in my room because that's when you were crying. You were crying overnight. So I
But
thought it was
how?
like,
Maybe it was Sib's weekend, but only Chris and Kelly were old enough to go.
well, no, I think Chris was already at school because I was in the room. I had Nancy's furniture. Remember when I took Nancy's furniture to
Yeah.
school, Chris, from her back room?
Mhm.
Yep.
It was when I had that furniture. So I want to say that was my sophomore year because I lived with Sharon my junior year. So it was my sophomore year. So it had to be Chris's first year there.
But
All
so
right, so-
that's my first memory. Go ahead.
Amazing that Kathy was able to fill in some of the gaps for you, Carrie.
And-
And all these years later,
Yeah.
So, Kath,
Well,
I'm
but-
glad
and
your
then I'm
memory
thinking,
isn't
like,
failing.
I think
I
it
don't
was
think
shortly
Mom and
after
Dad ever
Nancy died
talked
too,
about it.
because we thought it was weird that the dog died of a liver thing too.
Okay.
I remember
So
that.
maybe I was younger than 7 or 8. Maybe I was
Yeah.
even younger than that.
Well, that would have
Yeah.
been 82.
So you were maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
But to your point, though, Mom and Dad never talked about it? Like
I
Daisy
don't
was
remember
there and
them
then
ever
Daisy
talking
was
about
gone?
it again. Yeah. That was
Well,
it.
This
Well,
is
she
going to
was-
be a pattern for
Louis'
them.
age. Think about
Well,
that, right? She was probably Louis'
Yes,
age.
Kate.
So, you know.
She was probably too young
Well, she-
to remember. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah, maybe
remember
they did.
talking to Mom about it after Daisy died because we were discussing how weird it was that she had this liver issue. And I think Nancy had just died that same year.
Right.
But in,
Right.
in
Liver issue.
fairness to Mom, and she probably had a ton of shit going on, and the last thing she needed was a sick dog and, all that. So, I mean, But yeah. So that would be my first memory. So does anybody else have one that comes to mind?
I think mine was, it was Brian Cruselli. That was my very first
Mhm.
memory of, and the fact that he died by suicide was just so, and I'm trying to remember, Kim, if they,
Heartbreaking.
kept that under wraps or they
No, I
They
don't
were
think they
they
did.
were pretty open about it.
Is this someone you guys went to school with or something?
He was my age, yeah.
He was
that
Kim's
was like the
friend.
first thing to me, like, oh my God, like people die and people die in that way. And it was, I just remember it was haunting, haunting.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was Cheryl.
Yeah,
Mhm.
me
Yeah, yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yep.
that was mine.
Yep.
I mean, I was
Before you go into
Say,
this, let our
yeah, who's
listeners know who
Cheryl?
Cheryl is.
Yeah.
yeah. Cheryl was our cousin. She was 14,
13.
13, and she had very bad asthma, like chronic asthma. And she had an asthma attack, and they took her to the hospital. The hospital was crazy busy, and they didn't get her back there fast enough, and she died. And I was 17. Yeah, I was 17. And for me, anyway, well, first of all, I think because she was so young, that was the first young person I'd ever been, ever been connected to that passed away. Um, but I thought it was almost debilitating for me. I couldn't even go to the funeral. I could not go. So I faked sick. I was not sick. I just couldn't go.
Yeah, because you stayed home with Carrie and me, because I didn't
Yeah.
go either.
Told mom I don't feel good. I can't go.
Yeah,
It
I
was
remember going.
it
It
was awful.
was, yeah, I remember the white casket. She was in white. Yeah, yeah,
How old
yeah.
were you, Chris? Like a teenager? 15?
Well, I was 17. She had to be 16, 15
Right.
and a half.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot
Yeah, I
about
was a
that. You're
baby.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
because
then
I was like 9, so you
Yeah.
were like a year old, Carrie.
And then for me anyway, personally, it was like a frickin' tidal wave of loss, right? Because she died and then Ida died and then grandma, then
And
Nancy. It was like a
Amelia.
boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So it was a really weird sort of probably what was that, like 2 or 3 years?
That's interesting. You talk about, that you just couldn't go, right? And I think that, like, I think a lot about, I don't know, just the different experiences I've had in my life. I feel like I've become a lot less judgmental about how others handle grief, right? It's so personal.
Yeah.
And I think that there could be a perception at times where people don't care, and I don't think that's always the case. I think it's, and
Right.
I'm not saying that that was the case in your situation, Kim. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I agree.
but I think it's like just so hard sometimes for people that they can't, and scary, right? That they just can't even, like, it's just not somewhere they can go. And I guess for me and my experiences, I've learned that, like, I just um, it's not always about you or about them not wanting to show up or be there. It's just about, like, it's really hard for some people, and it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they don't care or,
Yeah.
it's not impacting them.
And I definitely worried that her dad, was upset with me because I didn't go. But we talked about it years later. And, he was not at all. He thought about it more that like you did. Yeah. Which made me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. We could talk about grief and guilt too at some point, but who knows? This could go on for a while. But no, thank you for sharing. That's
Mhm.
yeah. Anybody
I
else have
remember
anything like
the first funeral I ever went to was when grandma's boyfriend Rudy died. She
Oh,
drugged me along to that funeral for God knows what reason. And here I am. I don't even know how old I was. And, here's this old guy laid out. And so that was my first funeral. But yeah, Cheryl's is my first, because, like, I didn't know Rudy. So I didn't have any
Right.
tie to Rudy.
No, so
But
that was your
Cheryl's was rough.
first funeral, Kelly. I think
maybe
Ida's
the
funeral
first one
was
she
all of our
remembers?
first funerals. Because Ida died
Well,
well
yeah,
before
maybe
Rudy.
I just.
You blocking that
Might
out
have
too?
blacked it
How do you,
out.
how do you remember all of this, Kath?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I was in 9th grade when Ida died. Yeah.
And Ida was
Dad's
Dad's
aunt.
aunt?
Yeah.
It was Grandma
Dad's
Voker's
sister.
It's Grandpa Voker's sister.
Was Ida's like an open casket, normal wake
Yeah, she
funeral
was at
type
that
deal?
funeral home in South Euclid. Down by Belvoir.
Fioritos?
Do you remember?
No,
that?
down by
I know.
Belvoir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
see, I don't remember that either. Like,
I
how
got
She's
do
nothing
drinking
from
her
that.
creatine or something.
she's got a good brain, good brain.
I don't know.
And, she was 80, 78, 79, something like that when she died. And it was post-stroke. She had a stroke.
Mhm.
And the last at least year or maybe even 2 of her life for her was miserable because she couldn't talk. She could think of what she was fine in the brain and could think of what she wanted to tell you, but she couldn't get it out. And I used to feel so bad for her because that was so frustrating for her. She would just get so upset and, weepy and, you try to tell her, just write it down, but I think she was so miserable. She just did not like life after that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't know her.
Yeah. You guys wouldn't know her. I mean, shit, I was in the 9th grade and she was like almost 80 years old, but she babysat us the first 5. She babysat us a lot.
I was going to say, that's just fascinating to me that upstairs in Nancy's house is such a big part of our lives. And Carrie's like, I don't know who she was. I'm like,
She lived
You
upstairs.
went
When
up
you-
those. You went up
I
those
can
steps
describe
and
the
you were in
stairs to
1900.
Nancy's
It
house.
was the
Yeah,
wildest thing
it was black
ever.
and white check, wasn't it? Black and
Yes,
white
yep,
check
yes,
floors. Yeah, I
yes.
remember that.
Yeah.
But I don't
And
remember
her
her.
all
I don't think I.
antique furniture.
Was pristine. Like all her stuff was pristine, and it's like it walked out of 1900. It was crazy.
And you would just hear her little shoes when she was walking around up there, and the floor would creak as she's coming
Yep.
down the steps. And
Yep,
you were
yep.
like, see, to me, it was a very mysterious place.
Yes. Yes. And
You
and her
know?
black shoes. You remember her black? They were always
Yeah.
black shoes with a heel.
She's still dressed
Little
like the
heel and the
1900s.
lace up. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She did. She dressed like the 1900s. She absolutely did.
Uh-huh.
I still have her white pearls.
Do you? That's cool,
Uh-huh.
honey.
And we have her
Oh.
twin beds too.
Are those
Mhm.
the
Those are
beds
her
that were
beds?
in all the?
Yep. Yep. We've got a couple
I mean, it
rocking
is nice
chairs.
furniture,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh my
like
gosh, her furniture was incredible. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
The lamps, yeah.
Yeah. It was I wish I was, you're so damn young. I just would love a picture of it, if we would have taken a picture of it. Because people
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it was so incredible.
Time capsule.
Yes, it
It
truly
was.
was. And all of those things
Interesting.
were so incredibly important to her. So important to her.
Did
would give
she
you the
never
story
married or
behind
had kids
everything you
or?
asked about.
Nope.
No, she never married.
never had kids.
Okay. Okay.
Which is so sad because she was like the queen in nursery rhymes. She taught us every
Oh,
nursery
yeah.
rhyme we ever knew. She'd read us books. And you think about yourself, right? When we got to like the age of 11, 12, we were more annoyed by her than we were, because she would make us come in and we didn't want to come in from outside playing. And I think back on that and I think, you were such a shit. She was just trying to do the right thing. And, you as kids were just shits.
Well, she did piss me off when she cut my silky part off from a blanket.
Oh,
I was
Why would
not a
she
happy
ever do
camper.
that? That's the best part.
Because it was
because to
hanging.
her, it was right. It was, it
Raggedy.
needed to
It was
be
out of order.
handled.
But let me tell you,
Yeah.
that night when Mom got home and I still wasn't sleeping, Mom was like, oh. So Mom got out all her stuff and sewed some more silk stuff around my blanket.
So she was type A, very like everything had
Yes.
to be just
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Okay.
Incredible commitment to routine. Incredible.
We have plenty of pictures of us sitting on the couch with her when she would babysit us because she had us all lined up.
Yeah. In a
We
row.
had to sit with her and
Yes.
watch TV. And
In
she
a
had to
row.
keep an eye on us. Yes.
Kathy, maybe that was your first grief experience when she cut the silk off your blanket.
Yeah, that's a
Ooh,
good
maybe.
Would have
point.
been.
Ooh.
I know I didn't go to
That
sleep.
would
That's a
be
very
a
good
grief
point.
experience for me.
The
I
blanket?
was not a happy
Yeah,
camper.
don't touch my blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, now don't laugh at me for this grief experience. I had
No
a plant
judgment.
in elementary school. It was a coleus plant that I bought from the elementary school.
my God, I think I remember that.
they used to have. Yeah, I forget. I named it even. My coleus plant had a name, and when he died, I was devastated.
Because I
That my
think every
plant
year after
died.
that, you used to make Mom and Dad get a coleus to put in the yard.
Yeah,
Were you a
yeah, I
lonely
loved that
child?
plant. Was I a lonely child? I don't think so. But
You befriended
I
a
loved
plant?
that plant. Maybe that was my nurturing. I don't know. Like I
Yeah,
had
we-
this. It was like this big when I
Mhm.
got it, and it grew
And it
to
was
be
huge.
just
They
so
do
pretty.
grow
and-
beautiful. Coleuses are my
Yeah.
favorite. I love them.
Yeah.
and
They're
then it
so pretty.
died.
They are kind of
You
hard to
Googled
kill. I
that.
don't know what you did to it.
She was in like 4th grade.
Mm-hmm. And Chris, I remember
Okay.
your rabbit dying.
Oh, see,
Peter Rabbit.
that's trauma dying.
She
So I
blocked that
blocked
out.
that out of my head. I have a lot of trauma deaths
Yeah.
I blocked out of my head. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
But is
Pass.
it trauma or is it grief?
No, it's trauma.
Could be
Honey,
both.
honey, I left them out to bake in the sun.
Well, no, that was Smokey and Chestnut. I'm
You
talking
did not
Peter.
realize that, though.
Well, right. I didn't do it
You were
purposely,
young.
but oh my God. Now wait, now I'm
What
trying to remember how
happened?
Peter
Why
died.
didn't Mom and Dad put him inside?
I don't.
First of all,
I'm-
Mom and Dad were not excited to have rabbits. Let's be
No,
clear.
it was
Like
devastating.
you said, they had bucket
But I
loads of
think
kids.
You
They
had
did
them
not
in the
need
little
rabbits.
pen, like that fence thing you would put around them. And I think they were in the
in a
shade,
pen.
but I think we went somewhere and the sun
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
a weasel got him or something.
No,
No.
no,
They were stiff as a
baked.
board.
Yes, it was awful. It was awful. Okay, moving on.
But then we got Peter, who was the sweetest rabbit ever.
He
Who
was.
was
He
the
was
big
a
white
big
one?
white old rabbit.
was
Yeah,
Peter.
I remember
Peter.
that one. I remember
Yes.
that one.
What did
Yes.
Peter die of?
I don't know. I can't remember, Kyle. Like,
I don't know why he died either, but I remember when he died.
yeah.
Is he
Yeah.
another animal that mysteriously disappeared from the house?
No.
No,
He died in his
no.
cage.
No, but I was going to say that did happen with Smokey. Kim, you remember Smokey? Or
No, it wasn't Smokey.
uh,
It was
yeah, Scruffy.
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 Mm-hmm.
yeah.
He
Mom
just-
Scruffy
Mom
did
Mom
disappear.
did take
Disappear.
him and put him down.
Yeah,
Remember she
Mom
told-
put him down.
Told us she took him to the farm.
Right. She told us she
Right.
took him to a
Right.
farm,
But
but
when
she
we got
put him
older,
down.
she admitted to it.
It's what she did with
She-
Missy too. She just one day we came home and she was gone. That's my
Who?
first Missy. You
The
got
West
Missy. It
Highland
was
Terrier. We got
Missy
it from
was
Mike's
old.
mom. Yeah.
Mhm.
Missy was
she
old.
was old,
Scruffy was
but it's
young.
still not she was just gone one day.
Okay, wait, Missy, you're not talking about Nancy's dog.
No, that was
No,
Cookie.
that was Cookie.
Missy was Mike's parents' dog, and
Oh,
when Mike's mom
yes,
passed
yes.
away,
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember now.
Wait a
Yep.
minute. I thought Mom had the home vet come put Missy down at the house.
No,
He
that
did,
was
'cause
Cookie.
No, that was Cookie.
Cookie.
Oh, that was Cookie?
Cookie. Because I was
Remember,
there.
Cookie had this huge tumor that started growing on her stomach.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Do you remember that damn dog? She would run around the circles around the dining room table.
That dog was
Like
crazy.
she was
pee.
not. She was
She
neurotic.
peed everywhere.
She was neurotic. She was crazy. She was
you
crazy.
would pet her and she would pee.
Okay, MC, rein it
Yeah.
back in.
Yeah. Sorry.
sorry.
Okay. So does anybody else have any memories that they want to share, like their first exposure?
Well, I
to
would say sort of a
grief or-
different kind of grief, right? It's just more loss was when I went to school and you were little. I definitely did not like that. I did not like leaving you there when you were like 3 years old. That for me was very, very hard.
I would agree, Kim.
Yeah.
I would agree. Going to school was like, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why I followed Kimmy. Because I was
Do you
like,
mean going to college?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
God.
Well, she was
I
little,
was like,
you
get
know.
me the hell out.
It's so funny how Kelly has none of that. She
Kelly
was like,
was ready
"Nope,
to
I
go."
was done. Yep.
Yeah,
But
I did
but I
not
think
like
I
leaving
felt
Carrie.
that too. Like I felt that too, Kim, when you all got remember at your wedding, I was like crying. Because I'm like, you're my sisters, you're taking my sister. And but even when everybody was moving out, like as everybody got older and got married and stuff and was like, just starting their own lives, which is normal.
Yeah.
I remember being very devastated as a kid, like, oh my God, this is so different. The house is
Yeah,
different.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
It was different.
Well, and Lou used to play a game with her, My Kimmy. And
Oh, yeah.
she'd say,
Oh,
"My
I remember
Kimmy."
that.
Oh.
And he would get her so upset.
Oh. Yeah. I guess I'd call that's like the invisible grief. Like,
I mean,
yeah.
and it goes more along with just loss, right? Loss of time
Yeah.
together, loss of,
But
Yeah.
it still creates that grief response. I mean, I think that's, grief is not always the loss of
Right.
a
Right.
Yeah,
loved
for
one.
sure.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yep.
For sure.
I agree.
Carrie,
Sorry,
do you
Pat.
remember Brian Curselli? Because he absolutely adored you.
I do remember, I don't remember him as much like him, but I do remember when he died, and not specifics, but I remember you all talking about it and it being like this huge thing. I also remember when Eric Rosenthal got in his car accident and that was like a
Mhm.
huge thing for you all. but I don't like I don't know. Like, did he work at the pool, Kim?
No.
Okay. All
No, but
right.
he used to come to the
He
house all the time, and he
Yeah,
just
he used to be
adored
around a
you.
lot. Mhm.
I
He would
think
always
the
sing
thing
that
that was
Rolling
so
Stones
hard,
song to her.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was always such a like, my memory of him is he was always making us laugh, and he was laughing, and he was so fun to be around, and we
Yeah.
just loved Brian.
Yeah.
So it was like, how did this happen, when he was
Yeah.
so full of life, at least around us?
Yeah.
Well, you look at Twitch, from the Ellen Show,
Yeah,
Twitch, like
yeah.
a man who was so on the exterior happy and
Had a great
Mhm.
family and yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
You don't
Well,
know.
Kate, I think you brought up a good point. You talk about that it doesn't have to be like losing, like the traditional sense of grief where someone passes away or something
Right.
like that. So, do you have anything to add, like from your perspective about that?
Mine.
Yeah.
I just think, my line of work exposes me to a lot of grief and working with people. Um, I work with women, for those who don't know, who have high risk pregnancies, and often these are babies who have fetal anomalies that may or may not be compatible with life. And so like I have a nursing certification and it's in perinatal loss care. So I just do a lot of continuing education around grief and loss and death and dying and all those exciting topics. But just, like little things. So for my patients, thinking about like the grief that comes along with losing the pregnancy you thought you were going to have, raising the baby, like all these little things that you don't really think of, that just compile and go into it. For me, like I have a lot of grief over like, pre-cancer life
Mhm.
versus
Mhm.
post-cancer life and things that like, shouldn't be difficult but are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
What do you think, Kate, as someone who can also relate on the cancer spectrum, like what for you? I mean, there's a lot of big ones. So it's hard to pick just one. And then Kath, I'll come to you for your perspective. But what do you think, like, what's one of your biggest ones that you struggle with or that like it hits home for you?
Grief wise,
Yeah.
honestly, being the age that I am, it's the side effects of the meds and what it does to like your sex life and your body is probably
Yeah.
the biggest one for me. Like I can deal with being achy, I can deal with, and I think for me, like because my cancer was so advanced, like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like for me, this isn't just like a 5-year thing. It's, pending new research, at least a 10-year thing, if not a lifetime thing. That's the hardest one for me, that when it's an issue, I'm like, "You know what? Fuck this." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
For sure.
Katie, while she's working on that though, and we'll come back to Kathy when she hopefully figures this out, there's a definite grieving process for changes in life too, like the whole
yeah,
retirement thing. You're so
mm,
excited to start a new chapter of life, but you do have to you lose who you were, you
that
know?
identity.
So, yeah. So that's an adjustment that comes along with retirement that I don't know if people are always ready for, if that makes sense.
Right. I think some people don't even think about it sometimes
yeah.
till they get
Or
in
that's
it.
what keeps some people working because
Mhm.
they're like,
I
I
think
can't
that's
do
what,
this.
yeah. I think that's a lot of times when I talk to people, I think they don't know what they would do with themselves without their.
I have a girlfriend who, when she had her kids, stopped working, and it's a struggle for her just in that sense, not even out of retirement. And sure, she has her motherhood identity, but it's really hard for that to be her only identity. And then, like, what you lose with it, the socialization, the other adults,
Yeah.
like, it's just,
Yep.
it brings stuff that, yeah, when like you might not realize it while you're in it, but once you no longer have it, you're like, oh crap, that sucks.
Yep.
Mhm. For sure.
Supposedly.
Kate, what is your first memory of losing something or
Well, like
someone or
I mean, I remember, I don't remember it significantly affecting me, but I remember waking up after grandma died and going downstairs and mom was crying, which was like a weird thing to me.
yeah.
And so again, like for me personally at that age, I didn't really like get it, but to see my own mom crying and like she had told me that her mom was in heaven and but then like I almost think because then I stayed home with Deb for grandma's funeral.
Yep.
And I remember
Yep.
that and I remember being like, why is everybody else leaving and I'm not
Yeah.
going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I raised my kids very differently with death because I feel like that created a lot of anxiety and just,
You felt left out, probably.
well, yeah, and just like a lack of understanding. And like it was,
Yeah.
like I just feel like it really shaped my fear. Like I feel like the fear around death.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
talk
and I also
maybe to a
think,
fault,
Katie,
but,
you're so much more knowledgeable than mom was
and that could be,
about
yes,
that, you know?
yes.
Just in terms of how you've raised your kids, I just think you have a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think just
Yeah.
society has changed. I think
Yeah,
that like back then, I mean, I know I'm not the only one. Like I think
I
that's
would
just what
agree.
people did, that you like just
Yeah,
didn't
Right.
expose kids to this
right,
stuff.
right, right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that for sure it, creates issues. So I'm hoping, I don't know.
Yeah. We didn't
Yeah.
talk about it, that's for sure. I mean,
No,
things
not
would
at all. There
happen
was
and
no
we would
talking
go
about
through
it.
the motions, but there was never conversation or processing or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I probably am guilty of that with my own kids too, although you tried to do things a little bit different, but I can't
But
speak
I
for them.
do
But
think that it's such a big part of grief processing
yeah,
Yeah, I would
is
agree. I would agree.
talking about it and
Yep.
being with other people and, like, and so yes, to I do think not talking about it doesn't help, but I think we live in a culture and a society where it's just, and I think people are trying to change it, hence like Anderson's podcast and just, I think the discussion around the fact that like everyone goes through this. This is not,
right.
Yeah.
unique to any one person or situation, and that is helpful.
Well,
Well,
and I think it's so apt, Carrie, that you defined it at the beginning because I do think that people align it with just the death of someone, close to you. And it's so much bigger than that. And to help them see how much bigger it is really important.
Well,
I
like,
was, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I
No,
was just
finish.
gonna say, like, I think our niece right now is probably experiencing grief around the wedding she envisioned versus how her wedding might play out given life circumstances right now, like
Right,
that's a
right.
grief
For
response.
sure.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm even thinking of like, fuck, perimenopause and grieving like, oh my God, like I used to, have a lot of volume on my face. What happened? Or, any of that shit. Like I think any
Yeah.
of
Yep.
that
Yeah.
is you think about, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh wow, what's going on? So
Yeah.
Well,
uh,
yeah, it's kind of like, wow, if only I would have known, I would have appreciated these moments so much more, you know?
mhm,
But
100%. Kate, you were saying something interesting too about like society not talking about it. And I think we're such a, and I think that's about our family too, and that we're such like a fix it, like we want to fix. And like there is zero fixing when you're grieving something, right? It's like you have to go through it to come out of it, And not that you necessarily ever fully come out of it, depending on what it is, but you've just like got to go through it. And so I think I find that in myself where I'm like, oh God, it's so hard when you can't fix it when somebody's feeling really awful and there's not much you can do about it. And I've found like even, like when you were going through your treatment or Kath, you were going through your treatment, even though I went through cancer treatment too, I'm like, I just found myself feeling so helpless. Like, my God, like I can't believe that they have to do, and I couldn't go through it for you. It was just like, so I think that's part of why people don't talk about it because I don't think they are comfortable with the fact that you can't fix it,
Well, and I think that's one of the things, and that's where people get in trouble sometimes is that, you say something well intentioned that just doesn't come off the right way, and sometimes when a person's grieving, like sitting in silence and just being with that person in their grief might be like the best thing that you can do because you can't, right? You can't fix it. You can't make it go away. You can't, whatever. So, and it's not a comfortable place to sit. Like,
Mm-mm.
I get a
No.
lot of practice at work. I sit with these sobbing parents and you just sit there and let them have their feelings, but they know that you're sitting there with them, like it's just it's not easy. It's not comfortable, but I think it's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah. And that's a unique perspective too that you have to deal with that day in and day out. And
Yeah.
what generally is considered a happy time for many people and just how devastating that must be. And yeah, that's a whole next
Yeah.
level of grief that I can't
Yeah.
necessarily fully understand. But I think too, like finding your tribe through it as well, like finding for me when I lost my first husband, um, it, I, it was this craziest thing. Like we have a huge family. There's so many people. Like I don't know what I would have done without you guys, of course. But at the same time, you feel so lonely because you're just like going through this experience that nobody else has gone through. Not that you ever would want anybody else to go through it. But when you find people, and this is the same, I think, with like cancer treatment too, when you find people that have experienced it or that understand, it's just sort of like this unspoken, you don't even really have to explain, they get it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I mean, it
yeah,
really is fascinating when you start delving into grief and loss and all those sort of things. I spent, and in the time I didn't know what it was, but now that I've learned more about it, from a young age, knowing that like I was going to lose my parents younger, I think I had so much fear around that loss and the pain that it was going to cause that I started imagining my life without them and what it was going to be like. And there is a term for that. It's an anticipatory grief. And I think like that's something most of us probably experienced with dad when we knew like he was sick, we knew this was coming, but it gives you time to sort of process it. I've spent so much when I look back at just like my life in that anticipatory grief state. And I do think like, don't get me wrong, when dad died, it was still, sad and like not a pleasant time to go through. But for me, it helped.
It
yeah,
it helped for you to have that anticipatory because you kind of were imagining it before it came? Is that
I
what you
think
mean?
it did. I think it did. I mean, I think in that moment it helped. Now, I think it causes a lot of feelings like when you're living it leading up to it, but
I think it
uh,
steals a lot of joy from you too.
Yeah.
That's
and
sort of
yeah,
my
Right.
perspective on it because, I'll do that too. My mind goes in lots of weird ways, right? And I'll have some kind of anticipatory grief and then I yell at myself and I'm like, listen, this is not going to change any outcome in the future. You need to like step back from this and just live in the moment. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I get I get angry at my head when it does that because I'm like, "Damn, stop that. There's no reason for it." You know what I mean? But I think it's a protection mechanism,
I was
right?
gonna say, but why do you do that? You do that because it's painful and
It's
it's
a protection
uncomfortable.
mechanism.
Right.
Absolutely, right.
Right.
Absolutely, but I don't believe in the end it's gonna make it and you're, challenging that a little bit because you do think it made a difference, but I'd be hard pressed to believe it's really gonna make it less, you know, of a situation than it is, you know? I don't know. I just get mad at
How do
myself
you
when I
think
do
it
that.
how do you so you do think it lessened it a little bit with dad?
I just think I felt a lot of that pain along the way.
Well, okay, that's different though when you know somebody's terminal and you
Right.
have
Right.
an
But, like, I
opportunity.
feel like I even think about it with mom. Like, the reality is she's 85, 86 years old. Do I hope she goes anywhere soon? No. But is the reality that, like, there's a good chance mom will be gone from my life by the time I'm younger than most of you? Absolutely. Like, and so for me, knowing that, coming to terms with that, and I
Yeah.
think then it also helps me embrace whatever moments I do have when I have free time, to spend time with
Yeah.
her. Like it
Yeah.
for me, it just helps. And is it still gonna suck when it happens? Absolutely. It doesn't change that suck.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it gives me a healthier grief response because, people can then develop what they call complicated grief, where it is such an intense grief that you cannot move through it and continue on with life. And so I think for me, doing this allows me to move through a healthy grief response versus developing like a complicated grief response to these type of losses.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good segue because that was sort of I think this is where my fascination with grief lies. Not that I'm like fast, but I just think it's really interesting.
It is
It's
interesting.
like, why can some people move forward and keep going and kind of, like continue to thrive, I guess, while experiencing, terrible grief, and others get like stuck, or they don't, or they may not go through it as they might develop unhealthy coping mechanisms, or not be able to like continue and thrive. And like, I just find it like, what is it like? Is it having to be resilient through various things prior? Is it having access to a community? I don't know. Like, I'm just, it's interesting to me how some people can go through some really really bad stuff and still get through it.
Well, can I share
I
an
don't know.
interesting perspective on that? Like, I was just thinking about when you were saying some people and community and being with community and people I was thinking about when Frank died and when I had to come back here. Like, it was such a different experience for me to process through my grief because you were all together and you were all in the activities and the space so you could move through that together. I couldn't. So I'd come back. It's almost like I had like delayed grief. So I'd come back home and then I'd see those places or I'd see those memories and then I would feel it. And you guys were like weeks ahead of me because you had that space together.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's happened to Billy too, right? I think he had that same experience.
I think
Yeah.
the most like it's just the bizarrest feeling of grief when like your world is significantly changed and you're like it's almost in slow motion and yet the rest of the world continues to go on
For sure.
normal speed around you. And I've had multiple times now where that's happened and it always just in that time I'm just like, God, this is just so bizarre. Like,
Well, and yeah, to what you're talking to, if I could just say, like, I remember coming back here and just feeling though on like an emotional level, like we all held a heart space when that happened, and only we knew what that felt like. And when you were out in the world and you were doing your things and you were connecting with people, it was like there was this disconnection because they didn't know what I was feeling inside, but yet you all did. And there was only comfort in that particular heart space versus, to Katie's point, the world goes on, it does its thing, and you're like, oh, where is my heart space connection? So that is
Right.
a really interesting
right, because you're like,
thing.
how can you people be functioning like normal when my world is imploding? This doesn't
Yes.
like, how is this happening?
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
for sure.
And I would tell you, I went back to work, right? And I think that changed for me forever. That none of this shit really matters. I mean, don't get me wrong, it matters, but in the scope of life, none of this shit matters, how you can get so connected to your work and you're all, moving, moving, moving. That is not what matters in the end, not even a tiny bit.
Did we
Nobody
lose
from
Sally
Progressive
today?
on your deathbed, right, is going to come in and say, hey,
No. Yeah.
you did a
By
great
the
job at
way,
Progressive.
Right.
let me
also
come take care of you.
I also think it's interesting. One of the things that we work with patients and that we do so much to help not develop complicated grief is rituals. And so, like for these people who lose a baby, it's doing handprints, it's doing footprints, it's planting a tree, it's taking pictures, and I just feel like growing up, like my kids go to the cemetery to see dad. Like, I don't remember them ever taking us to a cemetery. Again, I just feel like death was such a taboo subject. And for me, that created a lot of anxiety around it growing up.
And see, you were different than us, right? Because you came at a different time, but we went to the cemetery all the time, like constantly. We were cleaning cemetery stones. We were going to feed the geese, with Grandma Patch at the cemetery. And we were going to visit the relatives before us all the flippin' time.
Stay tuned for episode 2 when we will dive into even more about the topic of grief.
Thanks for hanging with the sisters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the love, because every story sounds better on 6Ks and a mic.